Surgical sponge. Sponge. Lint. Frank, what is this?
Lint?
This is dryer lint. Dang it, Frank, I'm a doctor, not a laundress. Lint. Greetings, welcome to Mr. Dyer's Musings. I'm Mr. Dyer, and today we're going to talk about Lint and Charpie. As always, I like to thank my wife and family for their unconditional support. I like to thank my students for always driving me to be better. I like to thank you, my viewers and my subscribers, for making this possible. I know it's been a while since we've really talked about a medical subject, so I thought we'd get back to that kind of topic. I also like to thank those of you who are checking out my channel and checking out my videos for the first time. I urge you, after you watch this video, to check out my other videos to see if you like those as well. And consider subscribing, helping our channel grow, helping this educational journey that we're all in together expand, and inviting others to join it with us. So share, please do. All right, so today we're going to talk about Sharpie and lint. I'm actually going to show you how lint and how Sharpie was made. And this is different from patent lint. I actually have a completely separate video here in this link that will show you an original package of patent lint being opened, being explained, and all the bits and pieces that were a part of it. It was really fascinating. I love having the opportunity to have done that. So today we're going to talk about more common lint and Sharpie. Historically, during the 19th century, they didn't have Band-Aids, right? They didn't have that white pad. So Sharpie and lint was used for packing wounds and for the use of absorbing different bodily fluids underneath traditionally a bandage, just like the white pad that we have of a Band-Aid. And lint and Sharpie was made of linen, which is made from flax, which is a plant. And traditionally, they like it to be new linen. There are a couple organizations out there and societies and even church groups, etc., during the American Civil War who would get together, and their job was just sitting around in a circle or on a table, and they are making lint to send off to soldiers. It was a big thing. We've got a war going on. Any way that we can try to help the soldiers, especially in the South, where materials was not as easy to come by because of the blockade and everything. The Confederacy had to really rely on their citizens to support the war effort. So these aid societies like the Christian Commission and churches would, like I said, they'd meet at people's houses, and it was a social thing. It was a social event. Kind of like during World War II, where you would have scrap drives and you would have victory gardens and other modes of people coming together to try to support those soldiers that are fighting away in a war. Okay, so what is Sharpie and lint? I am going to go to a manual of minor surgery, and it talks about this. I'm going to give you the two different sections. We're going to start with lint. Although in an emergency, we may make use of almost any material for surgical dressings, yet there are certain articles especially adapted for the purpose, which call for a brief enumeration. Properly speaking, this list should include splints, styptics, etc., but these may be more conveniently described elsewhere. Lint is more useful than anything else would be for certain purposes. It may be readily made by drawing out all the cross threads from a piece of old linen, leaving only enough to hold the other threads together. Its fineness will be in proportion to that of the stuff. A very fine form of it, suitable for small wounds, is made by scraping one side of an old piece of linen with a blunt table knife. Patent lint, made by a machine, is sold in the shops. It comes in various grades of fineness, either in long pieces or in pound bundles. One of its surfaces is smooth, the other is covered with a cotton-like down. Its expensiveness is the only objection to it. Lint may be employed either in making compresses as a means of applying ointments or lotions to a part, or as a dry dressing. Generally speaking, its smooth side should be next to the affected surface. Nothing can be simpler than the making of a compress, the only points to be regarded being its adaptation to the shape of the part, and the regulation of its thickness. By suitable folding, a piece of lint or old linen may be fitted or graduated so as to press evenly upon a quite irregular surface. The perforated compress is made by folding the stuff so that it acquires a considerable thickness, and then cutting out a portion so as to fit any part which needs protection from pressure. It is in this way that the India rubber air pads sold in the shops are useful in preventing bed sores, since when inflated they form a circular compress upon which the body rests, while the sacrum is raised and free in the open space at the center. The cribriform compress is provided with apertures in greater or lesser number, through which discharges may escape to be absorbed by Sharpie or some other material arranged upon its outer surface. The Maltese cross is made by folding a square piece of stuff into a triangle, folding this again in the same manner, and then cutting away the two folded edges to near their point of junction, and opening out the piece. It will be found to have assumed the well-known form indicated by the above name. A little practice will enable one to judge quite accurately how large the square should be and how much should be cut away at the angles. The form of compress is much used for stumps, as well as affections of the female breast. So there we have it talking about lint. Now, what I have here is a piece of linen. This is new linen I got from one of the hobby stores. As you can see, it's cut into a length. And I'm going to show you how linen was made at home. And you can see here some of the results of me scraping it away and getting that fluff, that cotton-like down. And this is extremely soft, even softer than like a cotton ball. And it is not the same as dryer lint, as you can see. Okay, so we have our linen, and we have a nice hardboard on my dining room table here, and we're going to stretch it out across. I'm going to take my left hand, and I'm going to brace it down here. If you really want, you can even tack it down with some pins. Might be of use to you. I'm going to hold my hand here. I'm going to take my knife, just the edge. I'm going to put it straight down, very perpendicular. And I'm going to scrape. And what comes of it is that fluff. And that's what we're wanting to get. We're wanting to get that nice fluff, and that's going to be what's used to pack the wound. Now, in that description, it talks about using old linen for this process. Now, this is, like I said, brand new from the hobby store. I do have some linen from the same hobby store that I've washed several times and trying to soften it up. And what we're going to do is we're going to do an experiment. We're going to see how well this scrapes in comparison. So I'm going to lay it flat like so. I'm pretty much just going to use this section. We're going to see what we got. This is all the fluff that I got from that 4-inch strip. And I was working on it yesterday for quite a while. And we're going to see how readily this gives it up. Yeah, not very much. So it's not a 100% solid scientific experiment, but compared to the other strip, If I were you, I would just go with the new linen and go with. But this isn't really that old. It hasn't been used for like a tablecloth for years and gets stained up and then trying to get lint out of it. So take it what you will. Okay, you saw how lint was produced from the scraping. Now we're going to talk about Sharpie. And sometimes people get the two confused. Sharpie is composed of the separated threads of linen fabrics. Its coarseness or fineness will obviously depend on that of the original stuff. The threads are generally tangled up so as to form a porous mass. Cotton threads are sometimes used, but are more heating to the part than those of flax. Sharpie is mainly used as a means of absorbing discharges. With this view, it may be very advantageously employed in the dressing of stumps, abscesses, or suppurating wounds. It should never be placed in immediate contact with the affected surface unless previously soaked or anointed. Authors describe various forms in which Sharpie may be employed. The plumeau or plagette, the roll, the tint, the mesh, the pellet, the tampon, etc. But these differ only in their shape, not in the object of their employment, and may be easily devised to suit the occasion. It is therefore unnecessary to enter into detail here with respect to them. So there you go, that's Sharpie. So what does Sharpie look like? Well, once it's complete, it's like this. It's just pulled out strings of the linen. Now we're going to take a look at how Sharpie is made. We have the same 4-inch strip that I scraped earlier, and our goal is to take out these individual strings, and we'll see how well it does. There's one. So as you can see, it's you're not getting the full strings. You're using the end of my area that I scraped. And the reason being is because those strings are already so damaged from being scraped. I can pull it like this, and you get a mass like that. On the other end, the end that I have not scraped, I'm going to take off the selvage here, and we'll go from there. Alright, now that we got the selvage off, this end is free. How easy will it be to remove said strings from here? There you go. Full strings. And all I'm doing is making a tugging form all along the edge. And getting my strings. I'm sure if you had longer nails than me, this might be a little bit easier. Can you imagine sitting around a table with a bunch of other people talking about the war, talking about the wounded list, talking about church gossip, town gossip, how the corn is coming in for the season? All right, so there the amount of time that I had. I have this much string. I'll go ahead and put that in my little container of Sharpie right there. There you go. Taking out the strings is a lot faster than scraping it to get that fluff. You get more of a mass. The absorption capability, like I said, depends on the material itself. If it's really old linen that's been used for a long time, you're going to get more softer strings. If you're going to do this for living history purposes, I would suggest showing the difference in how one end that hasn't been scraped comes apart compared to an end that has been scraped with all the damaged threads. And this is a really good thing to do if you are sitting around camp and you get a young person or a family and you're going to give them a task, because kids tend to get distracted easy or they get bored easy. However, if their mind is being consumed with something that they can actually do, they're actually more apt to be more engaged in listening, etc. I was diagnosed with ADD at a very young age. And if I was engaged in something, I was actually able to pay attention a little bit more than if I had to just stare at someone talk. So you could talk about whatever impression you have if you're a nurse or a surgeon or something. Meanwhile, you're getting the benefit of getting some more Lint and Charpie being made. And the kids are learning something. They'll be able to go back to school, to their friends, go back home, talk to grandparents or whatever, and next time that they get a boo-boo or get a cut or scrape and you have to put a Band-Aid over it, they'll know kind of the medical application of that little white square, how it was used, and why we have it there to begin with. So bridging that gap of our contemporary life to our ancestors, history, people that came before. Who knows? You might have just encouraged that person to become a paramedic or a nurse or a phlebotomist or a doctor or someone else in the medical field. You never know what you do and how it's going to impact those that you interact with. This is kind of calming. I mean, it's really not too bad. Like I said, sitting around a table with a bunch of people talking about the day while you're doing this, kind of relaxing. Well, there you have it. There, we talked about lint, we talked about Sharpie, we've talked about how you can make both examples, how they were used, why they were used, giving you some ideas, hopefully, so that you can use for your impression if you decide to go into medical reenacting. But I do encourage you to try to come up with some ways that you can make that connection with those who you're talking to. If you're a teacher and you happen to be watching this and you're talking about Civil War, you're talking about medicine or something like that, maybe this is a tool that you can use to connect kids to history. You could be talking to them about the wounded and those who are amount of people that died at the Battle of Gettysburg. And meanwhile, they're sitting at their desk and they're pulling out strings. They might not be completely 100% focused on what you're saying, but you are making a real tangible connection. They won't be able to remember how many died at Gettysburg, but they'll be able to know how those who were wounded at battle and the casualties, what they were given, what did they have, and how was it made. Thank you so much for joining me. If you like this video, please like it. Please share it with others. Help others join our educational experience together. Please consider subscribing if you haven't done so already. I hope you have a wonderful day. It's July, just had 4th of July weekend, which is the anniversary of Gettysburg, the anniversary of Vicksburg, of course the anniversary of our nation's independence. I hope it was enjoyable for you as it was for mine and my family, even during this whole pandemic situation that we're all living in right now. I hope you have a wonderful week. Give a kiss and hug to your loved ones, and take care.